They had no conversation together, no intercourse, but what the commonest civility required, once so much to each other. Now nothing. There could have been no two hearts so open, no taste so similar, no feelings so in unison, no countenance so beloved. Now they were strangers, nay, worse than strangers, for they could never become acquainted. It was a perpetual estrangement.
Now we're strangers. Worse than strangers. We're exes.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
So in this video, I am gatekeeping Jane Austen, specifically the 2022 Netflix adaptation. So in this video, we will be looking at what the adaptation is wrong. For comparison, I'll be using the 2007 version of Persuasion, which is my favorite version. Now, if you love this movie for any reason whatsoever, you A, never read the book, or B, you just never liked the book. I'm not gatekeeping preferences. When it comes to adaptations, I think you can only critique when you know and love the source material. The only way that the adaptation is better than the source material is A, either the source material is not that good in the first place, or B, the adaptation actually improves on some things that the source material is lacking. Okay, I know that this is literature and different people have different interpretations, but there's interpretations and then there's
I don't care what they tell you in school. Cleopatra was black.
Well, this might not be history. The Netflix interpretation of Anne Elliot, the main character of Persuasion, is so far off that it's not even her anymore. When it comes to any media that is classified as adaptations, whether it's book to movie or vice versa, book to game, game to movie, whatsoever, there are levels of adaptations and they need to put themselves at, and also there are established rules to follow. Are they going for faithful? Are they going for modern, loose, anachronistic, and to what degree? When I saw the trailer for Netflix's Persuasion, I was honestly among the optimistic. Granted, I haven't read the book at the time, but I am open to many types of adaptations of classics because I'm not a book purist. And anachronistic adaptations can be excellent if done well, even to other cultures. I have personally seen and loved so many examples of it in various cultures, like Romeo and Juliet, Ram Leela, which you have to see, Bridget Jones' Diary, every Shakespearean adaptation by Vishal Bardwaj, as well as Bridgerton, with the fashion, the POC character, and the orchestral version of pop songs. But first, for anyone who doesn't know, Persuasion is Jane Austen's last completed work, which is close to end her life, where she was ill. This is her more somber and melancholic works. But what did you see in the Netflix version?
Look at me, I'm Captain Wentworth and I am handsome.
Imagine my luck. A flirt and a hard worker.
Oh, don't forget rich.
Now, I'm not a believer that one medium is superior than the other. And for me, it is always unfair for anyone to demand a 100% word-by-word translation of something to another when the director and screenwriter have their own take on the material and they deserve to have their version out with two conditions. One, they love and understand the source material, and two, their adaptations maintain the essence of the source material. Plus, the book and TV are two very, very different mediums, and some things in books just really don't work in movie or screen. Case in point, the Bridgerton series, which is why I appreciate a lot of the changes that they do, because really, it just won't work, especially Season 2. Season 2 is amazing, I love it. Also, first things first, before I go on, I want to make it very clear that POC casting is not the end of the world. Unless the race and ethnicities of the character is pivotal to the plot, it's fine to have a POC character switch. And to quote modern girls.
Being insistent upon historical accuracy to that extent means that you're more comfortable seeing people of color being mistreated on film, or never seeing them at all, instead of simply suspending your disbelief for an hour and a half.
Unless, of course, you're making a documentary. So what's Persuasion is about? So we started off years after Anne broke off her engagement with the love of her life because her family persuaded her because he is poor. Now years later, she is forced to face him again with a significant switch in dynamic. Her family that was once wealthy is now broke due to his father's reckless spending. She used to be a vibrant young girl, is now a lonely, dull spinster and neglected by her father. Plus, she's forced to care for and manage a family that doesn't care about her. Meanwhile, Wentworth gets a glow-up with wealth gained from the war and charisma and charms that comes with his position in the Navy. Their whole relationship is a lack of interaction. It's about Anne's love for him, but her guilt for breaking his heart forced her to remain silent. Wentworth, on the other hand, is also a man broken but masked with pride and ego, and they are distant in the book. And the whole story is a second chance romance. It's about reviving their relationship until they are reunited in the end after experiencing massive character growth. Now, I'm not going to touch on other characters because for me, Netflix didn't do much damage on them. In fact, I dare say that they are actually on point to the source material. But towards our two main characters, which Netflix should have given the utmost care, disgusting. The reason for Austen's work transcends time and culture is because she doesn't just make one type of heroine. She has a lot. Her works is about celebrating different dimensions of female personality. And there's the young and mischievous like Emma Woodhouse, the opinionated and firm like Elizabeth, and then there's calm and wise Anne. Austen is not about being #girlboss. It's about being decent human being with flaws but experience and growth in the end, which is what Hollywood is struggling to write right now. But Austen has been doing this hundreds of years ago. So let's look at the difference here between Book Anne and Impostor Anne. So Book Anne is very dull and depressed. She looks like she's sad all the time, but she smiles for other people. Whereas this Impostor Anne looks very lively. She makes snarky comments all the time to other people. She's very, very opinionated. There's a thing about convincing an audience with looks and physicality of your actress, making them look as accurate as possible to their characterization. Look at Dakota Johnson and tell me that you see a spinster. Book Anne has no makeup, jewelry, and wears very dull clothing until the very end when it reflects to her inner growth. This is to signify how much she is past her prime, and that the colors that she wore and the clothes that she wore and even the way she wore it makes her sort of blended in the background. You also need to understand for a woman in that time period how dire it is for them to be married and how hopeless it is to be a spinster.
I'm 27 years old. I've no money and no prospects. I'm already a burden to my parents. And I'm frightened.
The Impostor Anne always have nice hair, always have lipstick, and very fashionable. In fact, her fashion really stood out from everyone. When I saw her wearing that shirt, she looks more like Jo March. And the vibes that she carries makes her look like Emma Woodhouse.
To the verge of asking if her affections were engaged!
To Robert Martin! She told you this!
I cannot break her heart again!
If there's one thing that I really like about Dakota Johnson is her soft, elegant, wispy voice. I can easily imagine her talking in a soft way that real Anne would, if only they would make her less lively. Because Hollywood is just too afraid to make their actress look anything less than perfect. Or according to them, anything less than a 10.
He's a 10. I never trust a 10.
Next, Book Anne is silent and graceful. She's very observant of her surrounding, and she's even more introverted. Whereas Impostor Anne is very talkative, clumsy, has no table manners, make inappropriate jokes to people that is above her standing.
Sometimes I have this dream that a giant octopus is sucking my face.
It's weird. And lastly, book Anne is silently suffering. She always experienced this sadness. She longs for Wentworth, and she feels like this frustration.
And you, child? Are you reconciled to it? Oh, yes, indeed.
But she would never, ever blame everyone else for her own suffering. The only thing that she would do is wish that she is a stronger person.
I do not blame you, nor myself, for having been led by you. But nevertheless, I think very differently now from what I was persuaded to think 8 years ago.
Whereas this imposter Anne is just whiny all the time.
Now I'm single and I'd prefer open hostility. His cold politeness and ceremonious grace are worse than anything.
Love me, you idiot! Love me or kill me now, I can't bear it.
I would astonish myself and others with my quiet dignity. My quiet dignity.
You still have jam on your face.
Sometimes I have this dream that a giant octopus is sucking my face. Statues would be erected in my name. In memory of Anne Elliot, who suffered cosmic loss, yet really held it together quite impressively. Remember how Charles wanted to marry me before he married Charles? I mean, Mary?
You know what? I have an idea. I have a great idea. Why don't you go underwater and I'll count to 1,000,000.
Real Anne is very much self-aware of how she broke his heart.
I have used him ill, deserted and disappointed him. And worse, shown a feebleness of character in doing so.
Both of them need a lot of growth, and that both of them were too young, and while she does regrets not marrying him back then, she also realized that the advice that she received comes from a place of love. She was persuaded by someone who is like a mother figure to her.
You are a good and beautiful young woman. I promise you this. One day you will find someone to love you as you deserve.
I'm 27.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
Seriously, in the 2007 version, Sally Hawkins' portrayal is absolutely excellent. There's this melancholy and silent suffering just through her eyes, and the way she looks at Wentworth like she wants to say something, or every single time that his name is mentioned. I remembered Anne's dread when she heard that their house is gonna be rented to Wentworth's relatives.
I shall open negotiations with Admiral Croft.
Croft?
Yes. Are you acquainted with the gentleman, Miss Anne?
Yes. No,
I cannot tell you how handsome is Captain Wentworth.
He is so much more handsome and agreeable than anyone.
Ladies.
Oh, come, Henrietta, let us go with them.
It's like she's holding herself back, which is just masterful. She, as well as the writers and director, understands Anne Elliot. And having this character arc from being a pushover to someone who goes for what she wants, and at the end. But for Netflix, Anne, there was really no growth. She was already someone that is very opinionated. She's already someone that's like, do whatever she wants anyway.
In any event, you've never had any trouble speaking for yourself. You've never had any trouble speaking for yourself.
Look at all this fucking bullshit.
So when the ending comes, it's like, what was the point? The thing about character growth is that you need to start from somewhere.
Oh, but Anne is going to Uppercross. I received a letter only this morning from Sister Mary. She is indisposed again and requires Anne to come and look after her.
you may all leave the little Charles to my care.
To place such a person ahead of your own family connections among the nobility of England and Ireland.
Perhaps she's not the only poor widow in Bath, with little to live on and no surname of dignity. I am in receipt of your proposal, and am minded to accept it. I am determined. I will
Maybe she'll ever persuade me otherwise.
Next, we're going to look at Wentworth. Oh my god, he is so bland. This actor is the worst actor in this movie. Unlike book Wentworth, that is supposed to be charming, charismatic, chivalrous, and used to be very full of life, so we can understand why they used to make a cute couple. They used to, and they will make a cute couple again because they have so much chemistry together. And now their dynamic is shift, not just because of their relationship, but socially as well. There's sorrows, there's lost youth, and more importantly, he's experiencing silent anger and prejudice.
A little beauty, a few smiles, and a compliment to the Navy, and I shall be lost.
Oh, come, Frederick.
After all, what right has a humble sailor to expect any better? What I desire above all in a wife is firmness of character. A woman who knows her own mind. I cannot abide timidity or feebleness of purpose. A weak spirit which is always open to persuasion, first one way and then the other, can never be relied upon.
In the 2007 version, you can see that Wentworth is really just trying to stay away from her and, keep going for Louisa. But yet, he still couldn't stop himself from caring about her. He is the one who noticed her struggling while walking when she just prefers to suffer in silence because that's just who she is.
He condemns me still for the past and is becoming now quite attached to another. And yet, still he cannot be unfeeling. He cannot see me suffer without wishing to give relief.
But Netflix Wentworth does not even seem to hate her. They feel like an old friendly ex that broke up amicably. They communicate too much and way too often. Like even their first meeting looks like, oh hey, you're around, you come back, hey, what's up? It's like, bro, Netflix Wentworth even talks about how he admires her so much that he wonders what she would do if she was in the Navy.
My most grim moments at sea, and I felt completely lost and confused and inadequate. I would ask myself, what would Anne do here?
I just love the taste of nothing.
Now, if you read the book, you would know that Anne and Wentworth barely communicate 2 words with each other. But you can feel the tension, you can feel the chemistry, you can feel the longing, the wariness that they have for one another. And thus the book creates this vacuum feeling that they were trying to find their way back to each other.
You know, we all wish Charles had married Anne instead.
Anne?
I must tell you that he is utterly misinformed.
But in Netflix version, I really see no chemistry here, buddy. Who is this dude? Like, I find myself rooting for Anne and Mr. Elliot because even though he's supposed to be the villain, but because Henry Golding is fine. Like, look at him.
I think I'm in your way.
Perhaps you can correct that.
In the book, he detests her silence, but he still silently loves her. He is angry at her complacency and feebleness for so easily giving up on their love after being persuaded, But it is only after Louisa's accident and seeing Anne being the calm, wise one that he realized his judgment of error, and that Anne's worth is her inner strength. Is that when everyone else is panicking, when everyone else is going crazy, she is the voice of reason. He realized the importance of humility and being clear-headed, which is Anne's biggest strength among all things.
I would never suppose that true constancy is known only by women. But the one claim I shall make for my own sex is that we love longest when all hope is gone.
You have no idea, Harry, how I cursed the folly of my own pride. Had I only the good sense to seize my happiness when I had the chance again, and none of this would have happened. Too late, I began to understand myself and her. Never have I met her equal in good sense or sweetness of character. She's perfection itself.
Please change actor, by the way. Henry Golding should have been cast as Wentworth. This would really add a very interesting layer to the story because Persuasion was set in a time period where there is a massive shift of status quo in society. Soldiers coming home from war with wealth, which is seen as a threat for people like Anne's father, who feels disgusted at the thought of their house will be inhabited by lowly soldiers.
It is in 2 points offensive to me. The first as being the means of raising persons of obscure birth into undue distinction. And second, you never see a naval man who is not most shockingly knocked about. Exposed as they are to wind and weather till they're simply not fit to be seen.
Having a POC Wentworth would be a great adding extra layers to that societal shift, and is really appropriate for the movie. Plus, they seem to have more chemistry anyway. Like, their interaction is automatically way better than whatever Dakota Johnson is having with that Wentworth.
Perhaps. Will I see you again?
We must entrust that to Providence. That means I haven't yet made up my mind.
Well, it seems like Providence plays for my team after all.
I'm your cousin, Anne.
Cousin?
Imagine my luck. A flirt and a hard worker.
Oh, don't forget Rich.
I have to say, I am impressed by your openness.
Refreshing, yes?
That is all for me today. Have you watched Netflix Persuasion? And if you have, do you like it or do you not? And if you like it for whatever reason, I'd say good for you. Hope you had a good time. But let me tell you something. You can like that Persuasion, but don't call it Jane Austen's Persuasion. It's not. Oh, and let me know which is your favorite Persuasion adaptation. For me, I already mentioned I like the 2007 version, or maybe you like the 1995 version, which is considered like one of the best. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.